All right, cool. EM1 in the house. What up, bro?
Good. I'm feeling good.
What's up? Yeah, you were just napping and stuff, right?
Yeah. I've been on vacation. I took this week off. I have a job. I have a full-time job. So I took this week off, and I've been doing nothing, and it feels so good. Like I was gonna go maybe to LA, and I didn't. And so I've just been doing a fucking NYC staycation, just like chilling, very low amount of output. I went and saw some artwork. I went to the MoMA. Went to Chelsea, and just been fucking chilling, which is rare for me. I'm not like a chiller. It's not easy for me to chill and do nothing. Like I need to have like.
Yeah, you always seem like you're staying super busy. You got a lot of. I was looking through your art. The stuff you make sculptures out of is like. How do you think of this stuff?
Oh.
Like I saw one that you made out of beeswax. One you made out of some cookies. Or like it was like a big boy, something like that. It was like a sculpture with the water coming out of the sculpture's dick.
Yep.
Like.
I think it starts from like one, and then I do one, and then I see how people react to it, and I just how do I think of this shit? It just comes, honestly, it's come to me for a long, long time. I make like long lists of ideas I want to do, and I update them like constantly. Like, okay, yeah, I want to do some bronze sculptures because bronze is classic. Bronze is like historic. You see bronze sculptures in the Met. There's bronze sculptures from fucking like as soon as people could make art, they were making bronze. So I'm like, all right, let me see what I can do with that thing. And then oftentimes, if there's like a big dick or piss coming out, that's just like me trying to add a little humor into it, my style, my flair, so that people say, okay, like this dude's kind of like having a good time. Because usually I am. And if I can like, make somebody laugh or bring some sort of joy to the table, like it can get pretty miserable out there. It's a pretty miserable world sometimes. So if I could bring a little bit of joy or some humor or something into that, usually people will remember it too. Usually I find that like some heavy duty painting or some miserable like thing, people will be the type of people that I want to respond. It doesn't stick in their head, but if there's some sort of like humor or joy or like a positive reaction, it'll stick in people's heads for like a lot longer, and they'll say like, damn, that dude, like he fucking did like a bronze sculpture with a giant dick with piss coming out of it and fucking cracked me up. And that's what I'm trying to bring to the table, usually regardless of what it is, art or graffiti or just everyday style. Like that type of thing is like that type of joy or like just positive kind of energy is kind of like what I've been about for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, you said you use art as a coping mechanism for the world around you, and how there's disconnection between humans and nature and the planetary destruction that we're getting into and all that stuff. How do you, like, when did art become that avenue for you?
For me, it's always been like a way out, but I never really, since I was very young in school, even like early, like preschool, it was just like an avenue that I could rock with, that I could do by myself and I would feel comfortable, or I could do in like a school type environment, and like they would be like, all right, like you don't have to really do too good in math, like we can tell like you're like an art kind of kid, so just like go over there kind of, so it always like kind of like I navigated through that. And then when it came down to like getting more serious, I went to art school, but I never really even like, I was too young and didn't really have like a real idea of what to do or like how to do it. I was just kind of like I just loved being in New York and being on the streets, and that was kind of the avenue I went. But I would say like maybe in my mid-20s, I really started to be like, all right, like this is how I feel and this is what I want to do about it. This is like some feelings about myself or my environment or the art I want to see. And then this is the repercussion of these feelings is going to be this artwork, and it's going to look like this, and I'm going to try to make it like this, and I'm going to try to show it in this scenario. I'm going to try to one up my shit like this. So I would say like mid-20s, maybe like 2000. It's hard for me to remember dates exactly like when, but like maybe like 2000 8, 9-ish, I really was like, okay. I started to get focused on ideas I wanted to see, on like stories that I would lay out so that I could, so that it would provide inspiration for art, like a lot of inspiration, and just like really start building on my like, this is what I want my style to look like. This is how, when I want people to see that they can say, oh, EM did that, I can tell, or like.
You definitely have a very distinct style, 100%. And
Nice.
some of the sculptures that you make, how do you actually make them? Like, for example, the bronze ones. Do you shape them? How do you go about that?
Yeah, there's like a classic process. I'm lucky enough to have a person that helps me like work on the wax. It basically starts like it's as classic as it gets. Like it's wax, and then they fucking take that wax and they make a mold out of it. Or basically, we make a shape, usually out of clay, and then they make a mold from that, and then they pour wax in that, and then from the wax gets like, I don't fucking know, hot bronze poured in, the wax disappears, and there's bronze in that shape. It's like super classic lost wax. So I actually physically don't do it, but I don't pour the bronze, but I would like to. If I had more time, I certainly would. I would go to a foundry, and I would learn that process because it's just like so classic and so permanent. You know, like you see those things in a museum, they're so like a hunk, like a bronze sculpture. Like that shit is like
Powerful.
Roman era.
Brush the dust off of it and it looks brand new.
Yeah, exactly. Polish it up. So yeah, it's that process. Wax, sculpting, make a mold, wax, and I got a cool girl named Emily that helps me like go through all that process from like the drawings. I'll make the drawings and she'll kind of do the clays, and then we'll work on those clays together. She'll make the mold, pour the wax, and then from that we've just been sending them out to a foundry to make those bronzes. But those are fountains. So yeah, so then like, you know, they go onto a pump. You know, it's like this whole process that I've been working on and trying to figure out. And there's like a lot of learning. Like I'll do the whole thing, and the fucking shit won't fit, and I'll be like, great, I fucking blew it. But that's fine for me. You know, like I said, like I'm okay with it taking time. Like I'm okay with it, like the ideas I want. Some of them have been like since I was a little kid. Some of them have been like, you know, 30-year-old ideas, and they're not even done yet. But it's okay. Like I'm not in any huge rush. And I find if I do rush some of these ideas, I bonk them. Like I said, like I didn't. I'll be so excited about like, oh, okay, cool. Like it can happen right now. Let's do it right now. And then you know, like one little measurement will be off or something will happen, and so I'm okay with it taking time.
Dude, yeah, I was gonna ask because I actually was eager to ask you this in terms of your artwork, because it's really original and it has a sort of psychedelic feel to it. I was gonna ask you if you ever had any influences from like LSD or mushrooms to come up with your
for sure.
Because that's always the first thing when I see it. I'm like seeing these plastic fruits come out of a helmet. I'm like, that's fucking trippy, you know?
Yeah. Yep. I think psychedelic drugs have definitely influenced my artwork and my practice and just my life in general. There's certain images directly came from a drug called DMT. Yeah. Like one experience with DMT where like you'll see like oftentimes in my art there'll be like a grid mouth, a mouth with like multiple rows of teeth. Mm-hmm. And that came from like a psychedelic experience. And then when I started looking at other art, like Mayan art or like even Egyptian art, I'll say, oh, look, there's grid-like teeth. Yeah. And so I that connection, like seeing that imagery from like a kind of like a life, I mean like a birth or death scenario with this drug, and then going back and seeing like ancient historic images that have connections like that made me feel comfortable and made me feel like, okay, sick. This is like something that I can rock with, that like that will make me feel connected to whatever this thing is, life, death, history, art, whatever it is. So yeah, a lot of psychedelic. I don't use drugs anymore, but but I fuck with them. Like I'm down. Like
if you don't mind me asking, like
yeah.
when you took DMT, what kind of form was it? Did you smoke it, or you did an ayahuasca ritual?
No, I smoked DMT maybe in like 2009 with a friend without any, like I bumped into a friend. I didn't know anything about DMT, and they said, "Hey, you know, let's smoke this DMT. It's really, really, really strong." I'm like, ah. You know, I used to be very open minded when it came down to shit. I was like, fuck it, yeah. So we just went and he's like, you know, smoke it and hold it in for as long as you can and exhale. And you know, like did that and like exhale, like instantly, like soul shot out of the top of my head and like instantly, like and like time out the window. No concept of time, and I'll try to remember because it was a while ago. And then like my soul kind of like shot out into this mathematical grid, which was kind of like the lines of energy that create almost everything, I guess. And through these grids was kind of like a track, like almost like a roadway,
like
and then a tunnel or like almost like a highway. And then on that highway there's like a lot of other energy things I couldn't remember, but I saw certain images like a trickster like laughing face, which was very comforting and humorous to me, that was maybe like beckoning these other energies in myself to like come through. And I saw that kind of like there was I could see that through this energy, through these lines of energy, there was like a recyclage of this energy that maybe makes up all of us in the universe or whatever. And then it made me feel comforted that like, okay, if I were to die right now, which was what maybe it felt like maybe my soul had just left my body, and then like, not in a scary way, but in like okay, there's a body and there's a soul and they can be separated. And like so if I were to continue down this road, I would go to where everything else was going, and I would be recycled back through into all this energy. My energy would recycle through. And it was super comforting. I was laughing I think I was laughing the whole time, but it felt like very comforting. Like, oh, it's okay if you die. It's okay to die as far as like energy wise, as far as like your energy. Like it's obviously sad, and it's not really that aspect of death. It's more like the energy portion of death for me felt like, okay, it's not so scary. It's very natural. You'll go back into this kind of like energy process, and you'll just come back around.
So you feel like you had a vision of, let's say, reincarnation?
I think so. Yeah. It wasn't like, okay, you're gonna come back as like a squirrel or a fucking like It just seemed like, okay, there's like a natural process to this all, and it's very based on energy. And like I said, I didn't go like too far into there wasn't like much explanation. In fact, it was like the opposite explanation. It just felt very comfortable to be like, okay, like there is some like formula to this thing. There's some mathematical thing, but mostly I was just focusing on these kind of images, like like the trickster, like a running type of like panther like creature, and then all sorts of other like energy type of characters that were quite funky. And maybe that's just my brain's like take on the shit, you know, but I looked at some of the other people's like recollections of DMT, like heavy psychedelic DMT trips, and they were similar aspects.
That's what I've heard that as well. A lot of people have very similar experiences, and like I know that when you take I haven't taken it. I don't plan to, but I know that when you take it, the chemical in your brain that gets released is the same one as when you pass away. Yeah,
or born, or maybe when you dream, to a certain extent. So.
Really? Yeah. Born and dream. I didn't know that.
I think so.
I thought it was just when you die.
Well, if it's when you die, according to this fucking trip, it's when you're born too. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all psychedelic. I've never really had like any sort of like deeper, like from maybe acid or mushrooms. All that shit seemed like partying, but this one seemed like something different. This seemed like, okay, and I never did it again. It was only one time thing. I saw it, I fucked with it, I enjoyed it, and then I never cared to do it again. I don't feel like I ever would need to do it again until the time that, you know, it comes naturally out of my brain. Yeah.
You said you don't do any more drugs anymore?
No, I kind of like cashed in all my party points when it comes to drugs and stuff. I kind of like had my run, definitely my war on drugs definitely like didn't end very positively for me, and then I just kind of like I just had to stop using drugs. I'm like an all or nothing type of dude. Like when it comes down to like anything, if we're going, if I'm painting this thing I'm gonna paint it, and I'm not gonna like stop. I'm not gonna like paint it half, or if there's like I'm missing a color, I'm gonna go get the color and finish it right now. Or I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability of what I have, and that's gonna be it. Like if it comes down to like drinking or drugs, I'm doing all of it right now, and and then it just kind of comes down to like, okay, you can't do it. There's like it'll there's infinite amount of drugs and alcohol. So yeah, I haven't used drugs maybe like almost 5 years, and it's been like the most positive time for me. Like I was pretty reckless guy when it comes down to using and stuff, and also like my relationship with like death, like I was saying before, and life and death like weren't very clear when I was younger, especially when I was using drugs or alcohol. So it all got kind of muddy and honestly pretty depressing.
What do you mean by your relationship with life and death?
Well, like I used to think like, oh, okay, if I die or whatever, fucking, like big deal. I'm just kind of like here for a fucking good time, not a long time. And now I realize once kind of like I got out of this long haze, like I was getting fucked up since I was a little kid, maybe 12 or 13. Once I got kind of away from that a little bit, I realized, damn, like life is a fucking huge gift, like the greatest gift ever. Like life is the most special thing that you possibly can have. So for me to be like, oh, I reject that. I think life's kind of like whatever. It's a game, and if I die, I die. That's a fucking lie and some bullshit. Like life's so cool, life's so fresh, and like
also so fragile.
Yeah, like your friends start fucking dying and shit gets mad real, and like people you look up to and fucking people start dying. You're like, what does this mean? And then eventually you get out of the haze of it, and you're like, dude, there's no, I'm comfortable with dying, but I don't want to fucking die. Mm-hmm. I want to ride this shit out. I'm realizing now, like when I was a kid, I thought it was like, oh, like if I made it past 27, that would be like a great goal. But now I'm like, no fucking, I want to ride it out for as long as I can, because like every day is something new, something cool.
Mm-hmm. I know you would spend some time of your youth in Haiti.
Yep, I definitely. It's definitely a place I've been connected to since I was young, and a place that shaped a lot of like my understanding of myself, understanding of art, understanding of privilege as a white dude who grew up like in a semi-suburban kind of like, I wouldn't say affluent, like definitely not from a rich background, but like I definitely have privileges that when you go to a country like Haiti, you realize like, damn, everything, including life, including that shit I'm talking about being like the gift of life and like throwing it away. You see how hard people struggle and strive just to live, and like honestly just to be happy, and like what that means. And then it started to shape my life as far as like what I want to give back, what I want to do, what I want to leave, how to help people out, and also just like how to rock. There's like a lot of like very, very incredible, funky, real deal art there, and I was and am friends with like a lot of incredible artists from Haiti, and it just shaped a lot of like my outlook on art and life, and rocking, like how I wanna project myself every day, because people with very little there wake up and they rock. Like they make their paintings and they have their stories and they take care of their families, and like it really hit me that like that's regardless of where I am or what I have to try to do that too. Like if my boy can wake up in like a house without electricity and fucking rock a painting that's like tells a story that he wants to tell, and other people can look at it and he can explain that story to them, I'm like, all right, well then I have to do that too. Like that has to be part of like my plan, like how I have to do things.
Yeah, influence from other perspectives.
Yeah, and just like when it comes down to like the full sacrifice, when it comes to expression, like what are you gonna say? You're gonna say it like you just gotta. I just have to say it with all my heart. You know what I mean? It sounds a little bit like corny, but I can't like say things. Like I said, I can't really do things halfway. If I'm gonna show something, I gotta show it. I gotta try to express it, not just for the viewer. For me, I gotta get it like all the way out of my chest, out of my head, out of my heart, into the way, or as close as possible as to the way that I wanted to see it, that I imagined it, because that's what feels like a success. And so I just learned a lot about things like that from Haiti, and yeah, I haven't been able to go in a while. Like there was a lot of like political turmoil, and there was riots for like I'm not even sure if they're over or what, but I haven't been maybe since 2018.
You mentioned in 2010 how when that horrific hurricane hit that place, you were supposed to be on the flight that was supposed to arrive the day of the hurricane.
Oh yeah, with my mom for it was an earthquake.
What went through your mind knowing that happened and you were supposed to be there?
It all, yeah. I mean, I I never really thought about it too much, but now I'm thinking about it. I mean, I feel like we all have like a path, some sort of destiny, some sort of like maybe, some people would say God. And I just feel like, yeah, that wasn't my time to be on that flight. A lot of things like that have happened to me, and I'm very grateful. It just adds to my like ability to be grateful. Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't landing in Port-au-Prince on the day of an earthquake where 250,000 people died in like maybe 10 minutes with my mom. Like that shit. That shit would have been crazy. But I was there like maybe like I think it happened the 12th of January in 2010. I was there maybe a month later, like trying to help out, and it was definitely fucked. Like definitely some of the craziest shit I've ever seen.
Have they recovered since then?
Oh, the country. Yeah, they rebuilt it pretty well, but it's hard for Haiti to get like the break that it deserves in a way. It's such
sad.
a cool place.
I was looking up the statistics, and it falls under like the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. That's insane.
Still since the 50s. That's why someone in my family that I'm not directly connected to went there in the 50s and built the hospital because it was the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and they needed a hospital, so he went to like the middle of nowhere in fucking Haiti with his wife and his kids, and they set up this hospital, which is like, it's a wild story. And yeah, it's been like a privilege and an honor to be able to go there and do projects and help out. Like,
you moved there in 2009?
Yeah, I lived there right after the earthquake. I lived there for a while, for 3 years straight, doing projects with artists, painting like, so basically it went down like this. Like there's this earthquake, and they're like, now what? And the hospital was way out from the epicenter of the earthquake, like 3 hours or something out there in the middle of the island, which wasn't very affected. So then everyone from the city went out there. So the population like triples. The hospital is like a 100-bed hospital. Overnight there's 8,000 people there, hurt.
Jesus.
So it's like all out craze. So the United Nations is like, we gotta like figure something out. So they do this like flash economic development, where basically they give money for programs so that people can get some money so they can eat, like, and do work and like take care of the kids and shit like that. So I managed one of those programs, which was just pure total chaos. And I was like, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. I'm not like a UN guy. I'm like, I was pretty much there to just like, clean up my act. But then, like this shit landed on me, and we just did it. So basically my program was, I did like big murals, like huge murals with a bunch of artists and a ton of kids, like fucking 45 kids and 5 artists. And I would do like these huge soccer tournaments where I would pay coaches to train these kids from different towns. And it was great. It was super fun, and a lot of you can throw a party there for fucking 1,000 people for like $150. You got speakers. So, I'd throw a lot of big, huge parties and just get down and like made a lot of really close friends, a lot of who I'm still really close with. And then after that program ended. And then after that, I got a grant to, a lot of people from the earthquake, because it's like all cinder block, like everything's, they didn't like really, a lot of people got like mashed up and mangled up. So there was like this. They built this prosthetic clinic. Some like angel type place came down and they built this prosthetic clinic. So people were getting new legs and learning and new arms and learning how to like walk and doing physical therapy and doing therapy on these new like specific legs that were built for the terrain in Haiti. And I would work with them to try to teach them how to make some sort of craft or do something, or just like relieve stress by doing these like fun art projects. And I did that for like a solid year and a half, just like kicking it out there, having fun, working with these people that were relearning how to walk. So yeah, but at the same time, I was definitely out of my mind. You know, you could get like a huge 5-gallon thing of raw rum, like moonshine rum, for like, I don't even know, $10 or something, and just like, you know, it was just definitely just like a constant party. So I couldn't maintain it, but
I never thought of them as like a party place.
oh hell yeah, it's such a party place. People there, you know, they're just trying to, you know, life is so rough there. They're just trying to have a good time.
They've been through so much.
They're trying to drink. They're trying to party. They're trying to fuck. Like, I mean, obviously, like, you know, there's a lot of different types of people there. But where I was, this is like some country ass shit. They're just trying to live, bump music loud, play music, and just like have fun to the best of their ability. So a lot of it was that. A lot of it was partying.
So how was the paradigm shift when you come from there for 3 years to downtown?
Oh, I was out of my mind. It's very hard. You know, I came back to New York and like I just didn't know where I was or who I was or what. I was like a, you know, kind of like a wild animal. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I learned a lot. I learned so much about myself, about my art, about like how I wanted to go about my future out there, and yeah, but it definitely felt crazy. Like, it's like Mad Max out there, you know. There's very little rules. You can ride a motorcycle shit-faced broad daylight with like 3 people on the back, and like that's you going to work. That'd be me going to work. 3 people on the back of a motorcycle driving like across like a 2x4 over a river to get like to get to the other side of town so that I could paint murals all day with like 50 kids, you know, like just some wild, like just some no rules shit, no rules at all. At the end, I got very paranoid because the roads were so hectic that I was gonna die on the road there, because like, you know, people are driving like 100 miles per hour in a bus, a fucking like Mad Max ass bus with like 60 people on the back of that bus and on the roof, and then like a cow would just run out into the road, and it would just be like boom, they would just dust the cow or whatever, or the thing would just fucking flip. The thing would flip over and there'd be like 60 people all over the ground, and you'd be like, yo.
It's like a regular thing.
Regular. Yeah, you have to pick up people all the time. Like, dude, just motorcycle taxi drivers and they're just like inverted. Like their legs are going the other way. And
Oh
you're
my
like,
God.
dude, fuck. And they're just like screaming in the back of your pickup truck. And you're like, dude, this is how it is. And
then
yeah,
you
it just got to me eventually. Got into my head.
So why did you come back to New York from there?
I fucked up the whole grant, and I like couldn't. I was I was young too. You know, I was a kid, and I was partying heavily, and I couldn't like account for all the money. Like I ended up getting a grant for like a lot of money. I probably shouldn't even talk about it too much, but I will. But I got a grant for a lot of money, and basically I like misspent this money, and they were like, "Yo, you're in trouble. Like you spent like, I don't know, like $100,000 and you can't tell us where you spent this money, like you're fucked." So they froze my bank account. And like I said, it was by the end, like I couldn't, I was like so non-functional that I was like, I didn't even care. Like I think my dad like got me a plane ticket out of there, and I like landed with frozen bank account. These people, like, I don't think they were gonna incarcerate me, but like it was an issue. And then like, you know, I had been like a wild in the woods ass feral kid partying in Haiti for 3 years. So I was definitely like in a weird place. But I came back, and I came back to the city, and I started making art. I started making art like really heavily. And I don't even think I was really like, graffiti comes and goes in my life. Graffiti is like it's a constant, but sometimes it ebbs and flows. And I don't even think I was really painting very hard. I was just like thinking about stuff that had happened to Haiti and making art and making sculptures and started to make paintings and starting to show them. And I had also made videos every week before um, Instagram for fucking sure, but before like Vine, before these things, I had
It was a TV thing, right?
yeah. I had a feeling that people were gonna express themselves in this way, small clips, and I was like, it's like about people's lives, and people will be interested in that, and it'll be like life casting, like you'll broadcast your life out there, and people will pick up snippets of it. So I would make these like short videos every week for years, and I came back and I kind of like wrapped some of that stuff into like a cohesive package. I just started like really like thinking about what had occurred and trying my best to like package it up or express it in a way that other people could connect to it. And that's kind of where it started right there, from like coming back to New York from Haiti and just really figuring out like, all right, here's my goals when it comes down to like art and life. And some of those goals weren't achieved very easily, like when it comes down to like life and understanding how to live, and like, and some of them were like the art stuff kind of like started doing well. People started to go in, like I started having shows and people really enjoying them, and like I could that like kind of like equation. Okay, if I think about this stuff a lot and I express myself and I show and I do the work, and then if I show it in a public space and people come and they get down, like that's what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm. And how did you start writing graph?
Oh, graph.
Say, oh, graph.
I'm trying to think. And I was like, I know they're gonna ask me how I started writing graph, but graffiti. In 7th grade, my boy moved to California. Like my best friend, he moved to California for a year. His parents got a divorce, and then they were like went out to California, and he came back and he could like do West Coast tags.
Oh Lord.
And I was like, oh. And we were always pretty bad, like on the train tracks and shit. And I would see tags. There was tags in my town. I would see somebody that wrote Break, who I never quite figured out who he was, and there would be Rise KBN tags in my town, and there was a Rise KBN tag at the end of my block actually, and I would just look at it all the time and be like, that's the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen. Like it was just so sick, like who did that, and I couldn't really quite figure it out. But yeah, I started writing graph just by being a bad kid, throwing rocks off bridges and fucking just being on the train tracks, and then like I never had like a graph mentor or everything. I would see a lot of Caper, who was like incredible, and I was like, oh Jesus Christ, I couldn't figure out how he even like did it. And then so yeah, me and this friend just started writing tags really poorly, and then I moved to New York, and I actually got I got like there was like a big case on me and this kid in our town because somebody from the Boston Police Department like got like a vandal squad training or some shit, and then he came and he looked around and he's like, all right, there's only 2 vandals around here, and they fucking like did some crazy wild case where I was like in big trouble when I was a little kid, like all sorts of shit, and like and so I moved to New York, and I was like, I'm not gonna write. There's like professional, awesome graffiti writers here. I'm like, there's no reason for me to write graffiti. But just slowly but surely, it's just like, you know, I just enjoy it.
How did you come up with the name Electro? Like that whole ElectroMagnetic, how does that even come about?
Oh, probably from, it's been my only name or word that's ever been in my head, and ElectroMagnetic. It just seems to describe me in the way that I go about my life. You know, it's just electromagnetic. It's always been like that. I think there's I think in a Ghostface song, he says something about supreme magnetic. I just always thought magnetic was such a cool, like, I think there's some 5% aspect of it too that I don't know too much about. There's some religious aspect about it, but I don't know too much. But yeah, electromagnetic. I mean, it's an incredible force. It could ElectroMagnetic could be that highway that I'm talking about up there in that fucking trip. I don't know. It's always been that way. I wrote EM since probably like 1997. I think was like my first tag. It was my first tag, my only tag. And now it kind of describes a lot of everything I do. I feel like it's how it's just like that's the expressive part of my being, electromagnetic.
The faces sometimes that you'll put in the one and stuff like that, that comes from the trip as well?
Yeah, just trying to be, like a lot of it has to do with like trying to be as funky as possible and like funky, like as far as like an expressive, like express that core of myself where it feels good, and maybe it touches on some of that humor that I was talking about before, where people can see it and enjoy it, and it also touches a little bit on like branding over and over again. If you see the face and EM did that, a little kid could see it. Oh, I've seen that face before. And definitely the grid teeth for sure. The grid teeth came like I never thought about that before I took that trip.
Mm-hmm. Were you the owner of Paradise?
Yep, I was.
I don't know if you. There's no way you remember, but I walked in there forever ago, and like I don't remember like how you looked like or whatever, but you were like we were talking, and I noticed you had a bunch of books and zines for sale, and I was working on a photo book at the time, so I asked you if whenever I finish, if I could sell it through here, and you were like, yeah, and that was my plan, and then you guys closed down. How'd you come about with the idea of making Paradise and all that?
New York City has always been like an incredible place when it comes down to like that type of thing. Well, when I moved to New York City, there was all these cool little shops, and people would express themselves through like retail environments, like A-Life or like any of them. There's so many bookstores, and there was cool graffiti shops, and they influenced me. Like you would go and I don't know, just look at cool shit, and like even like a Tower Records or something like that, or Mondo Kim's is a cool example on St. Mark's. Like you would go and there's 3 floors of just fire shit, just cool shit, like records and books and zines and graph zines, and like I just felt like it was important to contribute to that thing. And then at the time there still isn't really many pure graffiti shops that were really like supportive of just like straight graffiti and bad kids, and it just felt like fun. And it was a lot of fun, tons of fun, but it was definitely a lot of work and pretty fucking heavy. But yeah, I don't remember that, but I was always down. I was like, I want this to be a place where a kid could bring a zine and say, oh, hey, can I sell this here? And then they could say, hey, you should check out my zine, it's over here. And then other kids would come and look at that type of shit and get inspired. Or
I remember Caleb was working there.
Yep, Caleb was working there. Zach's worked there for a long time. One of my friends from Haiti that fucking came all the way through South America was working there for a while.
Such a cool shop, and the dollars that you had everybody hit up. Wasn't that in an exhibit at one point?
Oh, I don't know.
I know Curve had his stuff there too.
Yeah. We did a lot of it. We did a lot of shows, a lot of good shows. Fuzz, Curve, Zach's, a lot. Gory. It was just like giving back in a way, selling paint, having fun, promoting just like that element of like of real graffiti and art, and trying to have fun. But it's not like a lucrative style of business, like. Mm-hmm. And eventually it had to close, but it was a lot of fun. And the main thing that I don't even really have them, but we made these like books, these Paradise Plus like quarterly magazines that I thought were really, really good. I'm not sure if you guys ever saw that.
I saw the Paradise Plus quarterly video. It was on Juxtapause.
Okay. Yeah,
and there was just like Pear and all of them painting in a different country. It was a really well put together video.
Yep, a lot of fun. Yeah, that kind of like was a supplemental thing to this magazine. But yeah, it was just like everyone that was involved in that project, like the people that would come often and the people that would paint kind of like through the shop and put products, they all fucking love graffiti. Like they all contribute so much to graffiti. And I don't really like to say graffiti culture, but just New York, and the graffiti
Subculture.
scene here, or like whatever you want to call that shit. We did no book signings. There were, like just all this shit that is important to somebody that actually cares about this New York and the streets and like graffiti. We wanted there to be like this place where that could be like just like a center for that, a place where you could come and do that.
It definitely was, and I think that's one of the cooler shops that has been out recently. It sucks that it's not around anymore, bro. It's a bummer. I really like you used to, like, on the Instagram account, the Paradise Plus walls or the morning commute, you'd post like stuff you'd see or stickers like that.
Honestly, it was kind of a labor of love, and it became a bit overbearing. When you're kind of like, the thing's barely making the rent because, like you're out of fucking flat black and you got to it's just like a pain in the ass, and like anybody that does that shop, everyone should go fucking, even if you're a booster, you should go buy some paint at the paint shop because they're doing that because they fucking love graffiti and they're supporting the graffiti scene. So like any of these lowbrows or scrap yards, go fucking spend $50 there for every like $1,000 of paint that you boost. Go spend fucking $200 at these paint shops because if they're gone, what are you what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I think
now that this one's gone, people are like, oh fuck, that shit was dope. It's like, yeah,
We've talked to Jess. He came on the show also, and like hearing him talk about the back in the days of Ave life, like you said, all these people going through this shop were real writers, real skateboarders, real like, it was just like raw New York, and like I think like a kid like me growing up, seeing that they're not faking the funk. This is like the real deal shit. I want to hang out. I want to know about this. I'll like, support it with my money or whatever because I know that it's not just some like, some businessman that doesn't truly know about this and he's just trying to make money off the culture. These are real people, like you said, like they're barely making the rent. They're doing this out of love. So
yeah, and I think that people just kind of like, now people are starting to realize like with nothing around, Blades board and skate fucking closed. Like there's gonna be very little shit around. Like now people are like, okay, I gotta go over there and fucking try to support. But like for a long time, people took the shit for granted. Oh, it's New York City. There's going to be popping shops. There's going to be a new one will come up. But the sheer fact of the matter is, like, they're not.
It's dying,
Not if people don't, step up and do stuff like that. And it's not that easy, like you said.
Yeah, it's not. But, I mean...
from the outside perspective, it looks like, oh, Paradise Plus, it's all a game. They just made the shop. Woo! Yeah. They have a little art show here, art show there. Woo! But realistically, you got to bust your ass to make stuff like that happen.
Yep, and you got to really, care. So, like, every time, all I'm saying is if there's a shop and you fucking want to go check it out. Spend some money, shoot the shit. They're there for you. Like, it's not like an exclusive thing where you're not, like, go buy your fucking paint there, go buy a zine there, go buy somebody's book there. I don't even know where you could do that, but... Or start one yourself. Fucking, if you felt the love, show.
I would love to do that one day. Start some of my own kind of stuff.
It's almost as if the city doesn't even want you to do that because the rent is so ridiculously high. They only want businesses that are like mainstream almost nowadays to have
feels like
a spot,
Yeah, feels like it. But I wonder now with
all this,
I think maybe space is becoming maybe a little bit more available,
accessible.
It seems like it. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess I couldn't say I recommend anybody open a graffiti shop. It's definitely fucking kind of a nightmare. But
did any like VS or anyone ever pull up?
Oh, I think a couple times, but I don't know. One time they came in at the first shop and we were watching The Last Dragon, the Bruce Leroy movie, and then they were kind of just hanging out watching The Last Dragon too, and they're like, "Oh shit, Last Dragon," and we were just watching Bruce Leroy they like made up some lie, hey, someone around the corner got robbed, and I think they were just checking it out, and then we were just all watching Last Dragon for a minute. I thought that was kind of a tender moment. But nothing really ever happened. I was always waiting, it was a lot of stress. I was always waiting for like
break down the door,
or just be like, all right guys, like the gig is up. You guys don't have like what the fuck are you guys thinking? But it never really happened. I mean, a lot of other tragedy shit kind of came, and it was definitely like heavy duty. It wasn't like the sweetest of endings to that chapter, but I'm glad it occurred.
Mm-hmm. How'd you come up with that name?
Paradise Plus. I mean, that's what it was. I was like, dude, for a kid, like, if I'm thinking about like a kid that comes to New York City and you got like all these shops, right? Like, there was a shop that Bobito had called Footwork, and there was like all this great like ravey shops called Liquid Sky, and there even Supreme at the time was like very much one of those things where it was just like somebody's shop, and when you entered in, it was like their world and their expression. And it felt like paradise. It felt like paradise. And for me, like, okay, this is paradise. And like paradise plus would be paradise plus like graffiti, plus like, you know, like mops, or like, it just felt like something that made sense to like a kid, like paradise plus all this bad kid shit. And then you'd be in like heaven, like in Pinocchio when they go to that bad kid island and they're all like smoking cigars and shit, and they all get turned into donkeys. Or like in the first Ninja Turtles when they go to like the bad kid's lair and they're all skateboarding, and he's like, what kind of cigs you want? And he's like, regular or menthol? Just like shit like that. I was like, this is like heaven. New York is heaven to me. I fucking love New York so much. Even now. Like even the way it is now, which is like the weirdest, most bizarre sci-fi version of New York, I still fucking love it. I love walking around. I love being here.
It's funny with this whole pandemic that went on. Before that, I would think that the city's getting gentrified at an accelerating rate, you know what I mean? And then this hit, and now there's graffiti all over the place. You know, like around my neighborhood, gates that I've never seen graffiti on. They're like, there's no space.
Especially the LES.
Smashed.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's smashed. It looks good.
Yeah.
It looks like kind of like modern 80s version of New York. But I mean, some people could debate whether it looks good or not, but I like the vibe of it overall. Like
beauty in the chaos.
Well, they're also like, you know, I realize now that this Giuliani guy fucking really, really fucked New York over. Like I was pretty young at the time, but seeing what this guy did and the laws and, you know, the racism and the systematic, pretty much like destruction of creativity, the rents like skyrocketing, making. You couldn't piss. Like when I was a kid, you couldn't piss on. Like you couldn't take a piss. If you had to piss, you had to like basically be like, all right, I'm gonna get a $25 ticket right now. Like this is what's gonna happen. You couldn't drink. You couldn't do anything. And these laws seemed like so inhuman. Like they weren't shaping the city so that you could be who you wanted. They were shaping the city so that they could invite who they wanted there to live there, and the people that they didn't want were excluded. And I'm realizing now that was anti-human, basically. It was inhuman. Like they weren't taking care of, they weren't making a city livable for its residents. And so now the residents are saying, this is how we want it. Your laws aren't really applying to us right now. Like, we're going to piss right here. I'm going to write my graffiti right here. Like, you don't have enough clout anymore. We're not scared of you anymore. Like, we just saw that, like, there's a lot of people, and if they're mad, they can do a lot. They can pretty much do a lot. And now, at this point now, that I feel like the cops are now kind of like reciprocating with some like heavier tactics. But it seems like some of those laws are out the window. Like some of those heavy duty, like, okay, if you take a tag, you're automatically going to bookings, like automatically. But now you do a tag, they're going to be like, yeah, or smoking weed. Like, I don't know how old you guys are, but smoking weed, if they caught you smoking weed, it was like a wrap. They were searching you.
Yeah.
And like, dude, like if you had a little bit of weed, it was like trouble. You were in like fucking trouble. You might like if you had money, you had to go.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you were in trouble. Now it's like, you know what? Like, smoke your weed. Like, go ahead. Like, do your. So those quality of life offensives weren't really like promoting the quality of life. I feel like they were just like making, gentrifying and shaping New York into like this one person's vision of like how to keep it like rich or wealthy or like cleaned up. But
it's an amazing place for a lot of different reasons and for a lot of different people. It's just crazy to see how there are people who want to do everything they can to change that. You know?
I guess I can't really. I don't really know too much about like these type of politics or like these type of very, very wealthy people. I just know that like right now, there's like an energy that feels like, okay, like even though there's a pandemic and there's a lot of rules and like you kind of like there's the ability where you're starting to see a glimmer of like, okay, they've kicked out all these these people have started to leave. The price of living here has started to go down. There's less laws that are applying to you for the way that you want to live, like as far as drinking in public or whatever, just doing your dance. And then you know, it starts to be a glimmer of like, okay, this could be more like the place where I imagined it, where when I, you know, or I imagined it, period. I imagined it today, or I imagined it 20 years ago. And it starts to feel like, I see a lot of hope. I see a lot of hope. Like, you see real deal people that have been here for a while that aren't going anywhere, getting apartments that they want finally for the price that they want, or buying a fucking house that they wanted, or, you know, I don't see a lot of people opening up businesses, but I feel like eventually, if things start to like kind of like even out a little bit, maybe they can. Maybe a Paradise Plus could occur. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't like to really project too much about what it's gonna be like. I just know that like finally for me, it starts to feel a little bit more free, even though it took like basically the death, then the fall of civilization to make it happen. And that's kind of why, you know, so much graffiti occurred, I think, because people were really like, okay, I'm going to go out and do my day. Like, there's nobody on the streets. It's, like, kind of time. There's gates down that haven't been down in 20 years. Like, I'm just going to fucking see what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. People have been, like I said, the LES is taxed right now.
Yeah, LES is crushed.
No space.
Yeah, I'm not even really quite sure how it makes me feel or whatever. It's just like, yeah, fuck them. Paint your graffiti.
Yeah.
Fuck it. You know, just try not to paint over me.
What do you have planned for the future in terms of your art or any future plans of traveling, anything like that?
Oof. Yeah, I love traveling so much. I love going to new places and seeing, and that's where graffiti is actually coming most handy. You can land in a place and click up with somebody that you've been chatting with, or a friend of a friend, and just really see the city from the angle that I like to see it from. But it seems like travel's a little bit out of the window right now. Just keep rocking. I got other ideas for sculptures that I really want to show. Like that wishing well one I just did, that was like one of my favorite things I've ever done, because it was so interactive. There was so much on the line. There was so much like humanity involved in it, and I just saw like a lot of things that really I want to keep exploring in my artwork. So like that definitely, and even just the technical aspect of like making it all pump and function, and like that just opened up like a whole big chapter in my head. I also have a painting show up right now in Chelsea for the first time. My first show of paintings in Chelsea, which seems like a real arena, like entering into a real arena. All the other shows I've ever done have been like, you know, kind of like independent releases, if you want to put it. And that seems kind of like the first thing out on a major label.
Is it just you?
No, there's some other people involved. It's a group show, 4 people, but it turns out they're all really great paintings. People I don't know, but they're great paintings, and I like being in the mix of them, and I like the way the paintings look. They're all paintings I made in quarantine, about quarantine, and
So do you have a separate studio for your art, or do you do it in your crib?
So I, up until this couple months ago, I had a house and I had a studio, and I would go between the two. But recently, I just got, like I said, like I got a COVID deal. I lucked out. I got a big space that I can do both in, which is good for me because you know, when I had the house and the studio, one ultimately would suffer. Mm-hmm. Usually the house, because I don't really care too much about that type of shit. So, you know, like I would be all the time at the studio, and then like nothing, you know, like my house, you know, there'd be like, you know, groceries in the fridge for like a month, you know, just like whatever. I couldn't really balance it out as well as I would have liked to. Like, and now I feel like there's a chance to like really be like, okay, it's all gonna go down in this one space, which I think is more like my character. So we'll try it out. But yeah, my studio and my house are now one thing.
That's what's up. I can't imagine what your studio looks like. So.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah,
sometimes I can't even imagine what.
Dude, I seen you post. There was like a video of you getting like a guy and a girl, and they were both butt naked, and then they had like the blood splattering.
Yeah.
What was that about? How did you get these people to volunteer for this?
I think you pay them.
Yeah, people do anything, right?
Yeah. No, those are cool kids. Those are great, cool kids. They were down. It was just like a vision. There's like an Adam and Eve type of thing. You've seen a naked man and a naked woman in art forever.
Of course,
it's in the fucking church.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make my own.
Mm-hmm.
And that fountain. Yeah, it was just kind of like sometimes these images occur to me, or sometimes they're based on things I've seen for a long time, or. yeah, I just wanted to make a fucking image where there was like a naked man, a naked woman, and a blood pumping out of some psycho fountain all over him, and it worked out. Came out just like I imagined it, honestly. So that was a success in my mind. That's for a book that's not out yet, but it's gonna come out soon. Where yeah, I photographed all of these kind of like helmets that I have been making, or like they're kind of like they're sculptures that are based on kind of like
The plastic fruit coming out of them and stuff.
yeah. It's kind of like they're like godlike images.
You talk about how they represent like the connect with man and nature.
Yeah, disconnection between man and nature, or disconnection between man and like a higher power, like a god or something, or connection to it. Like I don't really like to say okay, this is about this specifically, but a lot of the time there's themes that are involved, and most of the time they're about connection or disconnection. Connection with a force outside of a human, or connection with a force inside a human, or the opposite, disconnection from those things. And those are things that I like to explore, because I feel like that's pretty much all it is in this world. You're connected or you're disconnected, and I feel like that's what has a lot to do with energy, and yeah, it goes back into like the life and death, and that highway that I think about often just has a lot to do with energy.
How did the Hanji Party come about? Like that sci-fi cartoon, you talk about how it influenced a lot of your work.
Yeah, Hanji Party. Hanji Party is something that I from Haiti. You know, there would be times in Haiti that it would be extremely lonely. Like I would be, you know, I was one of like maybe 15 people that spoke English. One of them maybe like 6 or 7, you know, white people, which doesn't mean anything to me, but you start to realize like, oh, okay, like I'm different, I'm a stranger here, I'm an outsider, I'm a minority for the first time in my life, and this is how it feels, and like this is what I have to do to cope, basically. So writing this story was my way of letting my imagination go as free as possible, so that I could gather up images, kind of like images that I saw, either tell a story that would help explain some of the feelings I was feeling. You know, basically like writing a story. Like basically it was like a you know, like a mythological type of tale that had to do with my journey, but also like anybody's journey, like just a journey in a classical sense, and it would help in my mind create these images that I could then paint or sculpt or paint them in graffiti too. It's all one thing to me in reality. Like the graffiti can sometimes can be very basic, and it's just like a simple action or a simple character, all the way to the sculptures, which is like a super intricate expression of these ideas that I need to see. But it's all from the same center, core, funky world, and it all kind of comes from this story that I like to like. That's like never ending kind of story. It's just like a constant tale that I can tell to myself, basically, that helps generate imagery.
So you look at graph, you look at painting, you look at sculpting. Is all one thing.
Yeah, it's expression. It's like you know, it's an expression of myself. I like seeing it as one thing. That means different things. Like graffiti to me is pretty therapeutic. I don't know. So that's like kind of just one aspect of the practice, going out and moving around a lot and seeing the world. And then you know, and then there's something like studio practice inside where that's like kind of like that's how I'm expressing myself there. So yeah, I see that all as one thing. It all comes from kind of one place. And I used to try to like divide it all up into different portions, like graffiti's over here, and I never want that to linger, to cross over into this art thing, because that's not like how things are supposed to go. But now I just truly don't give a fuck. Like it's all me. It's all one place, and it's all one type of. It's all expression out of me, and it comes out in different ways. Could be bombing, could be drawing, could be a sculpture, could be a fucking.
And you don't really try to stay in one style. Like a lot of artists, which I can understand why they have like I'm just a realist painter. I stick to this one kind of a general style. Do you find yourself doing that, or are you open to just, would you paint some realism? Would you dabble in other aspects?
For sure. The type of person I am, like when I look at art as a whole, like art, the whole entire aspect of art, it's like so vast and so intriguing and so many different facets to explore. Like even just like in just the general like anything, jewelry, sculpture, like dance, anything. Like if it's there, I want to try it, and I want to try to do it in my style, and I want to try to express how I'm feeling through that channel. So if it's realistic painting and that's the type of thing I want to see from me, then that's what I got to do. Like that's how it's got to go down, because those outlet any outlet can be an out, like any form of those things that you said, any like type of art could be the type of outlet that I'm looking for at that time. So I would never say like, oh, I'm this type of writer, or I mean I'm this type of artist, or I'm this type of person. Like I just, as an artist, I feel like for me I want to try it all in my style and see what that means, you know, in any of it, in any fathom, film, animation, whatever it is. Just like I'm gonna rock it my way, and that's just like what I'm about, and that's what makes it exciting. That's what makes me get up in the morning. Like, hey, maybe I'll try something a little different this day. Maybe there's some type of painting that I want to try, and I'm gonna try to do it as realistically as possible, which I have been recently, and it's been fun. But it's still I still want it to be me, my style, my expression, and I want people to see that it's me.
Mm-hmm. No, dude, I genuinely respect like all of your work and what you're doing, because like you said before, there's a lot of dark stuff going on in the world, especially right now. A lot of people, I feel, they're losing their sense of like creativity, sense of joy, sense of happiness, because they're so there's a lot of forces out there kind of dimming that down. So like people like you coming out and being creative, all the humor, the life, the colors, I think that's very important for us to stay afloat with, to remind people that it's not just all, you don't have to just go one way. There's the yin and the yang. You can also enjoy good art, good humor. That's what we need to stay healthy in a way, is, to be happy.
Thanks.
Stay positive.
And and thinking right now, what you guys are doing is not too dissimilar from what Paradise Plus did. You're taking a bunch of like-minded people or interesting people and putting them in the same space and seeing what they have to offer, and that's what Paradise Plus did too as well. So, thanks for what you guys do too.
No, thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
I respect it a lot too.
Thank you, man. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
My pleasure. I had a nice cruise into Queens. Flushing. I don't know too much about Flushing. I would like to know a little bit more. Just a few food spots and that's it. But it definitely feels like a whole different place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking for. I'll probably go try to get some. You guys got any food recommendations in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I have some.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, man.
Yo, peace.